Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we kick off the first workshop for the Center's Economic Justice Program. Today's workshop is titled Living with Opioid Use Disorder While Maintaining Employment. And we are joined by Severine Hollingsworth, who is the community liaison of BART programs and MedMark treatment centers. They'll be leading us today in learning more about ways to access assistance and maintaining employment. Severine, without further ado, please take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. This is absolutely wonderful to be here. And I didn't realize it was the first one. I feel like, woohoo, very special. This is really, really great. Thank you for having me. And like Simon said, my name is Severine Hollingsworth. And I've been with the BART programs and MedMark treatment centers for going on 4.5 years. And I pride myself of reaching out to all our communities, being inclusive. And I'm going to share my screen to present to you opioid use disorder with employment, because I thought that was a very good subject. And I researched it for us. And let's get the slideshow going right there. So those are the brands. We're actually under YBW Health Services. And we have over 200 programs in North America. We also are going into inpatient now, all the way to Canada. So you may be very well aware that opioid use disorder is both psychological and physical. So opioids, what are opioids? They are painkillers, heroin, the codeine in the cough syrup, any type of opiate. And right now in the street, the big problem is fentanyl. So you must, I'm sure, have heard about fentanyl. It's unfortunately laced in every single street drugs in Sacramento County. Those numbers, you can reach them yourself. This is the link to the Skylab, and that's the overdose dashboard in California. Every state has one. DEA actually required every state to provide accurate information. Those are still the 2021 numbers, and unfortunately, the deaths related to fentanyl have gone up last year. When I started in this field in 2018, the average death due to overdose from opioid were 135 a day nationwide. The numbers we received from the DEA in January are now 295 a day. That is excessively scary because it is not really stopping, slowing down, and the cartels, unfortunately, keep producing stronger and stronger drugs on the street. And so we finally had the oxy crisis under control, and then fentanyl kicked in, and it is really everywhere. So this is a brain. It's actually my brain, totally sparkle and full of light and color. And at the bottom of the brain, you can see here there is a stem, right? This is what brings the opioid toward the brain, and right around there are some receptors that are receiving the sex, drug, and rock and roll stimulants. So for some people like me, if I take an opioid pill, like let's say an oxy, I will actually break in hives and throw up. So it's awesome, I'm allergic. But for some people, as soon as they take an opioid pill, like a Norco, a Hydro, oxy, they receive this immediate feel-good hormones. And for some people, it just allows them to feel better and to function. So it's even not a question of feeling high, it's more a question of feeling normal and good. But the problem is that when we take in medication, our body does not produce natural hormones anymore, and a tolerance develops. So more and more drug is required because our body produces less and less natural hormones. And after a while, an individual will need a pill or a fix or any type of opioid just to feel normal, to be able to function, to be able to get out of bed. I will be able to share later, if it's possible, some links to a 101 of addiction. And it's really a question of dopamine. No dopamine, you cannot get out of bed. And if you don't produce natural hormones, there is no dopamine. So it could happen to me, right? I could go to the dentist, have a root canal, they give me a little fewer hydro, and I like them, and I like them so much, I'm taking other type of painkiller medication, and then I'm developing a tolerance, and then I'm developing a dependency, and then I'm developing negative behavior with this dependency, and that's called substance use disorder. So the cycle of substance use disorder is very systematic, right? I'm an ex-smoker. I'm in recovery. My choice of drug was alcohol. And it's very common to decide, hey, I'm just going to stop. So let's say it's after the Super Bowl, I'm taking the pack of cigarettes, I'm breaking every cigarette, I throw them out, and I'm ready. It could be sugar too. It could be shopping. It's a behavior, right? So it is Sunday night and I'm like, okay, I'm stopping, right? And here I'm going to relate to a subject that you're maybe more comfortable with, which would be cigarettes. So cigarettes are in the garbage. I'm feeling good. Monday morning, I wake up, I'm going to the gym, I'm going for a jog. It's like, yeah, I got that, I can do it, right? Tuesday, I'm waking up a little headache, I'm not feeling as good, but I can do it. I work out again. And then Wednesday, I get rear-ended at a red light, and I'm starting to shake. And I'm right downtown, and on the corner of the street, there's somebody smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just have one cigarette, that would solve everything. I would be calmer. And that's all I'm thinking about now. So we are going through the cycle here. And this is the only thing I'm thinking about is, oh my gosh, can I have a cigarette? So replace cigarette with opioid or heroin or painkiller, and the consequences are a lot more dangerous, right? But then I go at the corner of the, right there on J and 10. That's where I am right now. And there's a guy smoking. I'm like, hey, can I bum a cigarette, please? And I break down. And then I go across the street and I just buy a whole pack, and I'm losing control over my drug use. Now with cigarette, the consequences are not too dramatic, but painkiller are expensive on the street. A pill costs an average of $20, $25. An average user will use 10 to 20 pills. So that's why the behavior of some individuals using lead them into incarceration or into trouble because they start experiencing the consequences of the drug use. So this is a normal cycle. A lot of time I hear, well, why can't they just stop? Well, because, the brain is such that the receptors are being damaged, and those receptors want to feel good. So let's say for an example, a kiss. So on a scale from 0 to 1,000, a kiss would be around a good kiss. Okay, I'm talking a very good kiss. Let's say it's around 100 on a scale from 1 to 1,000. A fix of heroin is 900. So suddenly your brain knows what it feels to be at a 900 level. So if you recall on the first case, we always try to experience this first case again. So imagine with drugs, with heroin, our user wants to feel that again and again. And the big problem is that the withdrawal are absolutely horrific. Now, quitting smoking, you get headaches, you get shakes, you don't sleep well, or you sleep too much. But withdrawal from opioid are absolutely horrendous. We're talking intestinal discomfort. We're talking the shakes, sweating. Our patients, when they come in, are pale. It is really, really sad. So the fear of going through withdrawal becomes stronger than the desire to stop the substance, because it just hurts too much to stop. So this is why also this cycle keeps repeating and repeating, and those receptors in the back of the brain are craving comfort, peace, and quiet. right? Again, remember, it's even not a question of feeling high anymore. It's a question of feeling normal. So that's when medication-assisted treatment program comes in. Now, if you have any question, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Simone is there and she's monitoring. So please, you can interrupt me. You can ask all the questions you want. So there is a medication-assisted treatment for smoking cessation. Some of you may have used it. There is Nicorette. Oh, that's a brand. I guess I'm not supposed to say that. The gum with the nicotine. Then there are patches. And if those two do not work, well, you always can go, further in getting help. You can ask for Wellbutrin, which is a type of SSRI antidepressant, or Chantix, which has been really well researched, and it helps a lot of people with smoking cessation. Well, those are called medication-assisted treatment, right? They reduce withdrawal symptoms, they reduce the cravings, and they help people minimizing the potential of relapse. We have no problem as a society with individuals using medication-assisted treatment for smoking cessation. So why should we have a problem with people, individual, young to old, wanting to better their life and use medication-assisted treatment for opioid? All right, so in our programs, we use methadone or buprenorphine. So buprenorphine, I had to actually be in front of a mirror to say it properly, when I started in my career. It's a hard one to say. But buprenorphine with naloxone is usually called Suboxone here in our streets, right? Suboxone is a brand, so that's why I don't like to refer to it. But when we have patients coming in our program, what we do and we help them with is to reduce all the withdrawal symptoms and control the cravings. So think about it. A pill of Norco will provide what's needed for an average of 3 to 4 hours. When a patient comes in our program and starts a methadone or buprenorphine maintenance treatment, they are on a meds that is long-lasting for 24 to 36 hours. So for 24 to 36 hours, our patient have very little withdrawal or none. There is very little craving or none. Therefore, it completely minimizes the potential for relapses. And the patient is now stable enough, very early in their recovery, that they can start working with other aspects of their life. They can start rebuilding relationship that they destroyed during their use, right? They can be healthier because their behavior is not exposing them to health risks, right? And the most important is that our patients on methadone or buprenorphine are not feeling high and they're not using illicit drugs. It does not keep this engrenage of behavior of doing an illicit drug. So we have methadone and buprenorphine, we offer counseling, we have only at this point one family program. Actually, it's for our moms. And very important, we are providing coordinating pregnancy treatment. And that is for our pregnant moms, the trauma of wanting to stop using while pregnant can be very difficult on the body and can lead to miscarriage. So there is enough trauma, we don't need more. So this is methadone. And methadone was FDA approved in the 70s. Methadone is actually it was designed to provide, pain relief. And when all our vets came back from Vietnam, having used opium over there, our vets turned to heroin in our streets. And we started having really a big problem of heroin use disorder, and we needed to find something. So they realized that methadone was helping, and it was, again, a long-lasting opiate, and it is a synthetic opioid. And it really had and still has great success. And I understand there's a big stigma around methadone. I don't know why people think, our clinics have needles and, they are, people that have no life. And it's absolutely not true. Some people will receive methadone a lot better than buprenorphine. And for some people, if they've been using, IV with intravenous heroin for 20 years, they need to be met at where they are. So we need to fill up their receptor. So methadone is a full agonist. It fills up your receptor. It meets the patient where they are. So the dosing will vary between 80 and 110 milligrams, depending. And it meets the patient where they are. And then there is buprenorphine or Suboxone. So buprenorphine with naloxone is actually Suboxone. And that's 20 years old. The big difference with buprenorphine is that it is a partial agonist. So partial agonist, if I use my receptor again, half the receptor is going to be filled up. And on the top of it, it's like the ninja, one of my director calls it, it's that naloxone blocks the top of it. So if any opioid comes in, boom, they're being pushed out and the patient will go into immediate withdrawal. Not pleasant, not comfortable at all. So it's kind of like an incentive of, okay, you're going to be stable, you're not going to crave as much, and we're going to help you, with a deterrent with the naloxone to make sure that you're not using. So buprenorphine with naloxone can be dispensed in pills, and that's what we have. They melt under the tongue, and there's also a film. But without counseling, you have nothing, right? This is the medication. And I like to kind of make the parallel with working out, okay? There is the food aspect, which is 80% of weight management. And then there is the workout, which is 20%. Well, it's the same thing with medication-assisted treatment. The medication is going to help partly, but if you're not working deep inside, understanding why you started using in the first place, well, you're not going to go very far, because as soon as something happens, we'll go back to our cycle of substance use disorder, and a negative event will happen and you'll go back in the same behavior. So the behavior is excessively important to work on. But if you're chasing the drugs every 2 to 4 hours, you do not have the opportunity to work on behavior. Now, if you are on a long-lasting opiate, like methadone or buprenorphine, you have 24 to 36 hours to get up in the morning, to take a shower, to put toast in a toaster, to have a healthy breakfast, to call some family member. You can rebuild your life. And then you can go to therapy. You can meet a substance use counselor who is specialized in substance use disorder. And the patient can build new skills. They build coping skills. They understand why do they keep relapsing, what's happening. And they go deep inside their heart to solve those issues. Because if you just keep putting medication and a Band-Aid, at the end of the day, it's not going to solve the root of the problem. And very recently, I read that it was, you can clean all the rivers, but if you don't go and see what's getting the river dirty upstream, it will keep going, right? Simone has a question. Thank you.
So the question is, for someone that's struggling with this type of use disorder, are there any assistance opportunities from employers to assist community members?
Yes, they are actually programs, like I believe they are called employment assistance program. I honestly have been trying to penetrate this world to make our services available, but they do talk about opioid use disorder medication assisted treatment. If you go on choosemat.org, that is a state website where they will list every single doctor that can prescribe Suboxone, narcotic treatment program like ours throughout California. Employers cannot discriminate against anybody who suffers from some substance use disorder. So with the counseling, we address adverse childhood experiences. And the fact of life is that ACE, adverse childhood experiences, was a study developed by Kaiser back in the late 80s. And every ACE, it's a scale from 1 to 10, increases the chance of substance use disorder by 20%. So most of us, we had a divorce. We may have had a parent or a caretaker or a sibling with substance use disorder. We could have, some violence in the house. We could experience poverty. We could have been molested. So this is right there, just 5 ACEs. So the chances of experiencing substance use disorder are right there, already pretty prevalent, and in France, it's normal to smoke. So that was my first drug of choice. I started smoking at the age of 14. And that's why as a community of siblings, uncles, parents, we need to be aware of this, because a child smoking is not normal. A child vaping, a child, having this need of smoking weed. Why? Let's address that, right? Let's have the right person that is trauma informed address the reason of this behavior. Remember, it's all about the behavior. So the beauty is that each visit with the trauma-informed counselor or therapist reduces the relapse by 2%, each visit. So in our clinics, patients can see a counselor 4 times a month if they want, if they choose to on Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal covers it. So that's right there, an 8% decrease every month. Now, do our patients always want to go 4 times? No, sometimes they even don't want to go once, but we make sure they go at least for a 150-minute session. Very important. And, I think it's important also, if you need to choose a therapist too, if you suffer from substance use disorder, it's important to have a therapist that has background in the addiction world. I think that's very important. So if, you decide to follow, narcotic treatment program with Suboxone, okay, Suboxone, remember, is a brand name, but I decided to make it simple for us. This is some extract of what we call the CFR 42 Part 2. Okay, it's the confidentiality of substance use disorder. Not only are we under some very specific guidance from HIPAA, but we are also under federal guidance, the 42 CFR Part 2, where we absolutely cannot talk about anything until we have an authorization to release information signed by the patient. And the patient can revoke that document anytime they wish. So for example, even if the court, a judge called the clinic and said, is Severine Hollingsworth, still going to your program? Our response is we cannot confirm nor deny that we ever had a patient of this name. And that's how protected our patients are. Their privacy is excessively important. Go ahead, Simon.
We have a question. Did you say that folks that are struggling can report this to their employers and be protected from termination? What protections do they have?
So I am not a labor specialist. From what I understand is this, from the American Disability Act, and it's right there, we all are protected from discrimination. My understanding is that an individual who reaches out to their EPA to obtain treatment cannot be terminated. They actually need to be offered programs, they need to be offered rehabilitations, they need to be offered inpatient or outpatient therapy, and that's a requirement, especially here in California. Does that answer the question? Now, on the
Yes,
other
ma'am.
hand,
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you very
you're
much.
welcome. On the other hand, you don't have to disclose that you're on medication-assisted treatment, right? This is a choice you make as an individual. Now, Suboxone is becoming more and more common, but most employers, when they do a urine analysis for employment, a drug test, they are going to use most of the time a five-panel drug test. In order to find buprenorphine, you need to do a 12-panel test. And those are a lot more expensive, but they go deeper in researching is there methadone or buprenorphine in the system. Now, why would they do that? You know, maybe because Suboxone is becoming more common, but I have never heard of an employer going above a 5-panel drug test. So I did, you know, also put some references here. You're welcome to write down, jot down. And I'm looking for my little arrow here. I have a bar in the middle. Here we are. Beauty of technology. Now, what's important also is that methadone metabolizes differently in the system. So with the 10-panel test, methadone will be detected, right? But again, most employers use a 5-panel. Now, if you're working in the trucking industry, they will give you a 10 or 12-panel, you know, because they are under the Department of Transportation, they are under OSHA, they are a lot more restriction for somebody who is using vehicle, you know, that could endanger other people. Individuals also that work, you know, in constructions, or they work, you know, there are some individuals that shouldn't be on methadone, you know, working with a bulldozer. This just doesn't make sense. Not that it's because it makes you high or anything, but we have to be realistic. There is a peak in methadone after 4 hours, and people can feel a little tired after those 4 hours, and then, you know, it levels up, right? Now, heroin is not processed the same way than methadone in the system, right? So if somebody is on methadone or buprenorphine, they will not test positive for opioid. They will not test positive for heroin. This is completely a different formula, and it would not one be detected for another. So if somebody is telling you, well, no, you know, I'm not taking opioid, you know, it's bup, I'm sorry, it's inaccurate. Opioids will test opioids. Buprenorphine will test as buprenorphine. Methadone will test as methadone. All right. So that's very, very important. So remember that individuals in the medication-assisted treatment programs are covered by the American with Disability Act, and they cannot be denied employment based on their participation on such a program. And therefore, that's why an employment assistance program would help an employee get treatment. It's in their best interest. You know, life happens. We do not wake up one morning and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to develop opioid use disorder. Hey, why the heck not? No, it's a personal journey. Something happened to get individual in this place. Is there any more question on the employment? Because I'm going to give you a little overview on naloxone. Then I'll tell you how you can enter our programs. All right.
Nope, no questions right now.
That's awesome. I must be doing a good job then.
Yes, you're doing a fantastic
Thank
job.
you.
You're answering all their questions.
That's great. I'm very happy to hear, but please do not hesitate, all right? So this is Narcan. You may have heard about it. I hope you heard about it. That's the naloxone. So remember when I was talking about Suboxone, it is buprenorphine with naloxone. This is the ninja that pushes all the opioid off the receptor. So here we are back with my receptor. What naloxone does is like blocks everything. So anytime an opioid is trying to get in, it's being pushed out. It's really a barrier. If you want to get trained to use the nasal spray naloxone called Narcan, you know, you're welcome. It's a 10-minute video on YouTube, and it's from the Department of Healthcare Services. And after watching this, you are trained officially to administer Narcan. Now, Narcan is very simple. You see, it's a little plunger here. You stick this in the individual's nose. You tilt the head back. There's a big spray that goes up the brain, and it moves all the opioid from the brain. Now, remember, right now in the streets, we're experiencing great danger for anybody, even people who smoke weed, because weed bought in the street is laced by fentanyl. And I would like to say some weed, but no, weed is laced with fentanyl because it gives more potency. So the dealers are like creating, this addiction on opioid through something that is supposed to be natural. All right. Yes, go ahead, Simon.
So fentanyl, I don't know if you reviewed this previously, but fentanyl is one of those drugs that is heightened right now. And a lot of our community members, especially our community members experiencing homelessness, marijuana is a little bit more inexpensive and accessible, but that doesn't mean that they won't be exposed to the fentanyl since it is laced with fentanyl, correct?
Absolutely, because unfortunately, what dealers are doing, they are sprinkling fentanyl powder in the weed, and they also have it in a spray form, and they just spray it. So the problem is that I understand weed is legal, but if you buy it on the street, there is 99% chance that it's going to be laced. And there is what we call the chocolate chip cookie effect, which means that if you and I were sharing a joint, Simon, you would be able to get the first puff and you're fine. I take the second puff, I go down, right? And if we bought it on the street, I want you immediately to think about, oh my gosh, is she overdosing? Because then it's time to call 911. You see me, I go down, my face is totally pale, I'm limp, there is no more oxygen going into my extremities, so I'm turning, blue. Or I can start having some gag reflex of vomiting, right? And you can't wake me up. So if you have an Narcan in your pocket, please, and I have to say that, but I love the song on the LBGT Sac Center Hold. It's like, you've got sunshine in your pocket. You need to have Narcan in your pocket nowadays. All right. So you can help people anytime. And what it does, you see the receptor is there. It just covers the receptor. The naloxone just covers everything. So any other opioid or any product in there is being pushed out, right? You can save a life. Now with fentanyl being so strong though, is that more and more we have to use up to 4 Narcan. So always call 911. I carry 1 Narcan and I have a face shield in my purse at all time. I live downtown and we have a lot of neighbors, that are using. So I'm always ready. But if I see somebody go down, I call 911 immediately. If I don't have a response, then I provide Narcan. After providing Narcan, if you have a face shield, if you know the person, you're comfortable providing rescue breathing, provide 2 breaths. Remember, fentanyl is an opioid. It depresses the respiratory system. There is no more oxygen. The organs are starting to stop and die one at a time. So by providing rescue breathing, you are giving fresh oxygen to the individual just experienced an overdose. So if you can, please do give the rescue breath. If you're not comfortable, do not. Remember, bodily fluid contains different, disease, and you want to protect yourself. If it's for you to get sick after, you don't want to do it, all right? So, any questions on naloxone before I move on?
Nope, no questions so far.
All right, excellent. You can obtain naloxone in, if you go to harm reduction services on Stockton Boulevard. You can go to Sane, also in Del Paso. There is a fabulous center, it's called LBGT Sac Center. They distribute Narcan. All right, so there are many places where you can get your hands on Narcan. I mean, I partner a lot with Leslie and Aaron, and when they come to our events, they always are so generous, in providing Narcan in our events to our patients or the community members. And I think that's phenomenal. So our model is focused on the patient, right? You come in, you will have a full intake. We are only evidence-based practice. So lately, you know, the ketamine is the big thing, you know, microdosing ketamine. It is a psychedelic drug that is being researched, and the research are very conclusive, right? But my concern is, how does it affect the brain? Long term, we don't have research with opioid use disorder enough for us to embrace it, right? So we know methadone works. It's 90% success rate if you follow the program, right? Buprenorphine works really well too. The results are getting better and better every year. So that's great. Ease of access, we have 4 clinics here in the Valley. We have one in Carmichael, one in Norwood, North Sacramento, one in South Sacramento, and I even personally covered a clinic in Stockton. What we are working on next is, you know, case management. We like to refer our patients for what they need. We are trauma informed. Cultural competency, I can tell you, somebody speaks French in this company. We really try to be all inclusive also. We are LGBTQ plus friendly and aware, and we do follow training. We are linking to all the recovery resource. That's my job. I'm connecting everybody. That's why I'm here today. I connected, you know, Simon actually connected with me because I am connected with the center. We do not have integrated primary care. So what we do instead, we teamed up with Elica Health, and they bring their mobile medicine van. So during COVID, we had vaccination right and left. We were able to provide testing anytime. So we do have the same goals than the center. We want to be good for every individuals in our communities. And that's why we are a recovery-oriented system. Affordable treatment option. So there is a price, of course. Now we take Medicare, we take Medi-Cal, all right, and we take a lot of commercial insurances. But we also take cash. And do you remember, and if somebody could put that in the chat box, that would be a lot of fun. Do you remember how much a pill cost on the street? 40 milligram oxy.
$30.
Yeah, approximately $20. Awesome. Thank you, Simon.
No problem. That was a guess. I did not know.
Wow.
It was a complete guess. I had no idea.
It's a great guess. It's more expensive in Los Angeles. And so if you take $20, you know, at an average of 20 pills a day, that's $400 a day to feed a behavior of substance use disorder, of opioid use disorder. We charge on a sliding scale. So depending on your income, it will go higher, but the lowest we can charge is $285 a month. So that's for methadone. It includes the intake, visiting with the MD, visiting with the counselor. You have 1 session of counseling a month, and you have your medication. Buprenorphine is more expensive, especially the buprenorphine combo is $650. It's the meds itself that is a lot more expensive. But for $650, you get everything. So some individuals, because of employment, they don't want to say anything. So they come in, they fill out the paperwork. It is completely confidential. Our programs are not on what's called the cure reports. There is a report that are pulled, you know, in pharmacies from doctors, actually, everybody. Anytime you are prescribed medications such as benzos, you know, sleeping pills, any type of anti-anxiety or opioid, it goes on a report that's called a cure report. Our programs does not have to be reported on cure report. So technically, an individual who pays cash, nobody knows about it. And we do have a few that exactly want that. They want to get help. They want to be into treatment, but they don't want anybody to know about it. So they pay cash. All right. So that's a possibility. And remember, we do provide individual counseling. This is where we are. Yes, go ahead, Simon.
Severine, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but do you know of if someone is, you know, really struggling, are there opportunities for them to gain assistance in paying for this program if they're not on Medicaid or Medi-Cal or connected with any type of service?
Well, they could get Yeah, they could come and enroll and do an intake and just pay cash, and depending on their income, it would start at $285 a month for methadone or at $650 for buprenorphine, for Suboxone. So I'm not sure I understood the question properly, but did that answer?
I was just wondering if they don't have the cash to pay that, are there other
Well, right now
providers?
there is another possibility because most of the narcotic treatment programs in Sacramento got a grant. So we all have a cash influx from the government, so we can temporarily help an individual.
Okay, perfect.
But
thank you.
eventually, we could help them, and the grant is not fully launched yet, but we can help them for 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
But during the
Okay.
60 days, they need to enroll with Medi-Cal. But,
Okay.
if you come to our clinics and you are Medi-Cal eligible, we will get the paperwork going with you, or we'll teach you how to do it. And we will be able to start treatment as long as you're eligible. Now, if you're not eligible, this grant at this point could help for 2 months.
Okay, perfect. So there are some opportunities, at least a starting point for the first 60 days until they're able to get that additional assistance in place.
Yes, and there is another grant also, and I don't know if it came out again, but it was called the Youth Opioid Response, and it was for 16 to 25-year-old, and those individuals could receive up to $785. So that provides something to start at least for a month. So there is a lot of help on the market right now, because it's really a problem. It's a true scary problem, and it's very clear that nobody wants to become an addict. But life happens. So yes, help is there. There is a lot of help now available. But important, I cannot reiterate more. I want to really, it doesn't matter whether you come to our programs or not. If you're going to do something, please get counseling, get therapy, understand what got you there, right? The older age group, it took me forever to finally understand, why do I always turn to the bottle when things are getting difficult? I don't think I'm a bad person at all. I'm not ashamed. I work with people that are brilliant, that are on medication-assisted treatment, and it's just a solution to help us going, It cracks me up when people tell me they want to run a marathon barefoot. Well, what do you think we created shoes, right? It's called progress. There are other solutions, the be tough and handle it. Does not work for everybody. And it's the same thing for weight management. It's the same thing for smoking cessation. Some people need different help because trauma is different in everybody. Everybody is different. So, and that's why our programs are totally tailored for the individual. Nobody's on the same dose. Nobody, is experiencing the same journey. It's very personal. So for our programs, you need to be 18 and you're and older. You do need a photo ID. The third point, opioids are your primary drug of choice, meaning if you come to our program and you're totally free of opioid, we will need to send your blood work to an outside lab to verify that maybe you have fentanyl in your system, all right? Because unfortunately, nor hospitals nor our programs, either any of the programs in California, are allowed to use the dips to see if there is fentanyl to intake a patient, because there are, I guess, too many false positive or negative. I wish we could use them, but we cannot. So we have to send the sample out, all right? And we have policies and procedure you need to adhere to. When you come in, expect to be at the clinic between an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on how many people showed up on that day or made appointments. There is a full review of medical and drug history. They pull the cure report. You'll talk to an MD, a PA, or a nurse practitioner. There's a full physical assessment. We draw blood. We have next month we're teaming up with LBGT SAC Center South. They're going to come and do HIV testing and education on PrEP. So, we're very encouraging people to do that because it's, the behavior is such with the needles and all that it's very prevalent and possible. And there is a consultation with the intake counselor. And again, we go over all the policy and procedures. So at the beginning, you have to come to the clinic every day. Being in recovery, I can tell you that every day you need to remember and tell yourself that you make the choice of being in recovery. So I think it's a very good way to start a program. And I'm open for any question. If you want to address stigma too. One I really love is like, well, we're just transferring one drug for another. So, well, same thing with the patch or Nicorette, right? And it's just to teach us to build coping skills. And when we're ready to get off, we little by little taper very slowly. And that's a little bit my concern lately is that there is so much Suboxone everywhere on the street. Nobody is really taught to taper off the medicine and people get sick. And that's a very big concern in my heart because we can help taper if you need to. And the floor is yours, Simone, or anybody who wants to ask questions.
Well, Séverine, you did an amazing job. There are not any additional questions. I feel like you primarily covered all aspects, all facets of this topic. So I do not see any other questions in the chat. So I just wanted to really thank you for teaching us about this topic. And it's particularly a topic that's plaguing many people in our populations and in our community. We're really lucky to have someone like you who are looking to, are really looking out for the community and sharing your knowledge about this an important subject, especially with, a lot of areas. It's a topic that's on the rise. There isn't that much assistance that are out there. So to really be able to identify, the work that you do and how we can partner to assist folks in our community that are struggling with this and how it really impacts their progression. And, when you're struggling with something like this, it impacts a lot of other areas in your life that has to do with education and employment. And so as we start to develop the economic justice program, we recognize, these barriers. And if you are struggling with one thing in a particular area, it's going to be difficult for you to really be able to tackle those goals that mean a lot to you. And so I particularly liked the aspect or the section where you said, this could happen to me, and that's so true. It really reminded me of a time where I had a really bad knee injury. And the first thing that I was prescribed was a controlled substance to manage the pain. And there wasn't much, follow-up after I received that medication. And after about months on this substance, I noticed that I began to develop a dependency. I was able to, after I reported this to my doctor, I was able to receive assistance in getting alternate pain management options so that dependency didn't go on any further. But there are a lot of people in our community that didn't have that opportunity, and they find themselves being extremely dependent and not necessarily know how to really tackle it to get their lives back on track. So for you folks out there that might be struggling or have someone in your life that's struggling and you want to really intervene before it gets to the point where they might lose their employment or lose other areas of their lives that are really important to them, please feel free to reach out to Séverine. I'm going to put their contact information in the chat. You can email Séverine, that she's the liaison. Her email address is shollingsworth@baymark.com, or you can email the center at info@saccenter.org or give us a call at 916-442-0185, and we can connect you with Séverine at the BART Programs and MedMart Treatment Center so that you can really be able to help our community members and help yourselves so that you can continue to progress. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks again, Severine, for this presentation. And I hope to see all of you participate in the next activity, the next workshop that we have coming up on February 23rd, which is really about an elevator speech workshop. We'll be partnering with two gentlemen that will give you some information on how to draft and deliver your elevator speech. It's going to be same time, same place, next week, Thursday, February 23rd. Tune in at 2 o'clock. It's going to be about 40 minutes, 45-minute workshop. Same format as Severine, very interactive. You all have the opportunity to jump on, ask any questions. And if you need additional support after the workshop, please feel free to reach out to us so that we can get you connected, so that you can also be prepared for the You Better Work Fair that will be on March 9th from 12 to 3 p.m. at the center. And that's at 1015 20th Street, located downtown. If you have any questions or comments, or just want follow-up information about the workshop, Severine's workshop, please feel free and don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, Severine, thank you so much for your time today. It was very beneficial to a lot of the folks that tuned in. I hope please come to the workshop. Severine will be at the You Better Work Fair. If you have additional questions, she will be on site to give more information about employment opportunities with the MedMark Center. Thank you so much, folks. I look forward to seeing you next week at the next workshop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.